Recording, and I'm going to unmute Barry, and I'm going to hand the presentation over to Barry. Barry, good morning.
Morning, David.
Thank you again for agreeing to participate on or putting this presentation together. I think the topic, as evidenced by the number of people we've got on today, is of significant interest. So we look forward to what you've got to say today.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thanks for the opportunity. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Birthday. Welcome aboard. Yeah, look, this is a subject that's very dear to my heart. Hopefully, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Barry Reid, Managing Director of IDS. We're a consulting business that help financial advisors with compliance management and advice processes and systems. So a lot of the work we do with advisor businesses involves interacting with their technologies, and I've probably got nearly 20 years experience of working with advisors, right from the old days of loading quote systems from disks onto their systems right through to projects we're running around the country at the moment around integrating or changing CRM systems, integrating advice processes and systems into that, and also we provide compliance support around marketing tools such as emails, newsletters and things as well. So it's an area dear to my heart. And also for our own company, we're in fact in the middle of a technology review ourselves. So we provide advice, we have client data, we use systems quite a bit. And in fact, we only had our own sort of security breach last year where one of the staff clicked on a spam email which got into our email system and started firing off thousands of emails per minute. So yeah, that it shows that no matter how much technology support or security you have, problems can happen anywhere, anytime. So today really is an overview of the topic that we're going to be addressing over the next 12 months and the 6 sessions. So today we're trying to set the scene. So, why do we use technology in our practices? Some of the risks around that, the compliance requirements. Also, I really wanted to stop and say, well, how do you plan, your IT systems in a business? I think over the years, a lot of businesses, what they do is they tend to add on technologies as they come along on top of what they've already got. So you can end up with, potentially legacy systems that you're using and new systems, but how do they all fit together? And do we actually ever stop? And in fact, one of the outcomes I'd like from today, and it goes towards the checklist that David's prepared, is if one thing you got out of today was to actually stop and do a review of your systems that you actually run, that would be a great outcome, because it's a good time of year to do it. So yeah, managing technologies going forward. So why is this important? Really, it's important because these days businesses are run on IT systems. There are very few businesses that we see now when we go around the country meeting advisors and doing advice process reviews where they're not utilising technology at all. The idea of a paper-based system completely, while there is still paper being used, it's very, very rare. And so, yeah, everyone is running on it. The key things are that you do have an obligation to get it right. It doesn't matter what business you're in. You have to make sure that whatever processes or systems you're running, we're interacting with clients or interacting with product providers, and as I say there, that getting it wrong can be costly. So from a regulatory point of view, what obligations, I guess, do you have? One of the major ones in our industry is probably the Privacy Act, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as the session goes on. But there are also some things inside the Financial Advisors Act and the Financial Markets Conduct Act, to be fair, which talk about holding on. We've got to store information AFAs are required to, for at least 7 years, to hold on to records of advice. Yes, you can do that in a paper-based format, but more and more advisors are doing that electronically. Also, under the Financial Advisors Act, we're in a situation whenever there's a complaint, either with the disputes resolution scheme or with the FMA or even with a professional association, the advisor is obliged to provide evidence of the client relationship or the client files. So yeah, to be able to do that electronically provides some efficiencies. So being able to store records of contacts, file notes, phone calls, emails, all becomes really important for financial advisors. Also, when using technology up front, things like our websites or marketing, what we say in emails and what we do, we have obligations under the Fair Trading Act, probably the Consumer Guarantees Act as well, around what do we say? Are we misleading? Are we deceptive? That type of stuff. And then because we are business owners in most cases, we have obligations under the Companies Act to be able to meet our directors' obligations of running a business and running it well. So that then comes into using systems around accounting, company records, interacting with the company's office and registrations and things. All involve technology. But the biggest risk facing advisor businesses, as far as IT is concerned, is data security. And in fact, it's been identified after conference as the biggest risk, that we're actually going to run a whole session on data security and what options and what does that actually mean in this day and age. Data security, because financial advisors hold really personal information, and in fact we've seen this be a problem for probably one of the bigger financial businesses, I guess, is 2 years ago. ACC, they had examples where a claimant ended up with a file with a whole lot of personal information and health information, personal information on other claimants. In fact, it was such a big deal and such a big problem. The CEO at the time, Ralph Stewart, stepped down because it was such a big breach. Now, we as financial advisors are holding client information, financial information, and the stuff that scammers really look for, which is bank account details, credit card details, we potentially have that in our files or on our computers or wherever it is they're stored. If that was breached, there's some major issues. And of course, personal health information. Our proposals and personal statements for insurance advisors hold information that's, unlike a lot of other businesses that clients would deal with. So when it comes to holding this information, we've got big obligations to not get that wrong. So we're going to run a little poll. David's going to pop that up in a minute. So what I just want to find out from you guys is, where do you keep your client information? Where do you keep your client information kept? That's a funny way of putting it, Barry.
I missed that.
So yeah.
Hey, I'll launch a poll for those of you that are not familiar with this. Throughout the course of each of the sessions, we try and keep you on your toes by launching a few polls and just get your feedback on what you do in your practice in relation to some of the material that's covered during the webinar. We put the poll up for a few seconds. You get an opportunity to answer the questions, and then we publish the results immediately. So if you can, please participate. And be assured that the information you put in, we don't actually monitor. It's all done at an aggregate level. So today's poll is, where do you keep your client information? Now you can select more than one if you want to. So if you got it on both hard copy files and local computers, then obviously tick both boxes. Give it.
And it can be kept obviously in more than one, but obviously if you keep it in more than one place, we're going to have, you've you've got the same issues. It doesn't matter where it is.
Exactly. So we've got 63% voted. We'll give another 10 seconds. 10, 9,
Good as gold.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's close the poll and we'll quickly share the results, Barry. So obviously the number's going to be higher than 100 because people have ticked more than one box.
Yeah.
So 81% of the respondents keep hard copy files, 61% on local computers, and 72% on online data storage.
Wow. Yeah. So that's getting up there on the online stuff.
It is, isn't it? It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just doing a review at the end of last year, and I walked into the office and I noticed they have a reception area that anyone can sort of walk into, and the person who sits at the desk, reception desk, is a PA to one of the advisors, and she sits there sometimes in the office sometimes, and there's 3 other advisors who don't have PAs in the same sort of office. And I was looking around and I said, oh, so what are these files at the back? And they were actually client files in the reception area. And I sort of, man, not that many people are going to walk into an advisory business and steal client files, but and I always used to laugh when I went to the insurance companies when they say, oh, we have to lock the doors because people might come up and try and steal some insurance, But we do have some obligations.
It's interesting.
So yeah, we've got a real mixture there, and that tends to follow what we see when we do the reviews, is that we do have stuff kept on local computers and files, just in your normal file explorer. We do have stuff that's kept on online data storage. Interestingly, with the online data storage, and it's getting an interesting space, is we ask clients, hey, is that a commercial or business account you've got, or is it just the free Dropbox or the free Google Drive? And we start to say to them, oh, that's cool. So if it's the free one you've chosen to use, and it's nice and easy to use because it fits in with your email and what have you, but what is the terms and conditions on that, and who has access to that information? And I can tell you it gets a little bit scary that if you're not paying for it, a service, IT service, and you're using it, you may have given away some rights to some of that information that you weren't aware of. So yeah, that's a little warning. So how secure is all your client data? And so this is probably one of the parts of the checklist that you'd be starting to look at is under the Privacy Act. If you're holding client data, it's got to be in a locked place. So we see people working from home offices, which is great, but they have a cabinet, but the cabinet's not lockable. But they go, oh, that's okay, the front door's lockable. So, and we go, yeah, sort of is, but sort of isn't. So you've got to make sure that they are locked away and they're not just kept in an open space, even if it's at home. Same with the office space as well. A locked cabinet would be the most suitable place for it. So that would mean that if staff are putting client files out on desks in an open plan area, especially where you're sharing offices or you're in a space with other businesses, then keeping client files out on desks wouldn't be recommended. If you've got a local computer where data is stored, then obviously password protected. If you're backing up your data onto another storage device that you take offsite, is that storage device, is that backed up? Can only be got to through a password. The other one, which obviously 72% said that they use, is online storage. Then we start to get into some really interesting questions like, well, where is that data actually kept? And we'll probably find most of it's kept overseas, and it could be anywhere in the world, really. Then we go, well, okay, well, who can access the data? So a big thing here would be, a to-do item would be, hey, check the terms and conditions of where you're storing it. Who has access to it? Where is it? And you need to know that. We're finding in the Financial Markets Conduct Act, when we've gone through the licensing process for peer-to-peer licensing and DIMS licensing, those guys have actually had to go back and confirm that they've actually done some due diligence on this. Interestingly, we talked about the options paper coming up soon and going forward. If we get to the stage in 2017 where advisors are going to have to potentially license to be an advisor, which will be similar to authorising now, I would imagine we'll start to see those requirements that were required for those licenses brought in to advisors. So make sure you've done your due diligence. Okay, where is this? And I tell you, the free stuff is probably the stuff that is potentially loose in its terms and conditions. For example, with email, if you read through Google email, where it's the free Google, and I think it was the same with Hotmail, they actually say that anything that you develop, or you almost lose any IP that you do via their email system. Now, that's not saying that they're going to definitely use it, but they can definitely see it, and they can definitely analyze it. Whereas on the business, if you take out a business account with them, those terms change, because they go, no, you're now a client of ours. So, yeah, if you're using any free online storage or free email services for business, I'd suggest you look to upgrade to a business account or a paid account. Smartphones, we've all got them. Well, a lot of people have got them now. They're probably more powerful than the laptops we were using 5 years ago, and they have these wonderful apps where it makes it really easy to get to client information or storage or data or systems. How is that protected? So if you left that behind in the bar, could someone just jump on that and get access to your client information? The other thing is also a lot of software systems allow remote access, and we're going to talk about that next in the virtual providers. So if you've got a virtual assistant overseas and they have your login for your CRM systems or your back of your websites or whatever it happens to be, who do they work for? Have they had police checks, all the rest of it? Because who can they pass that password to? So those are the type of things we'd have to look to go, am I sure I've got my client data secure? And we're going to go into that in a big detail in our next session, which I think is April.
Yeah, no, I just stop you there for a second. Talking about the free software, Gary Cavany has come up with a very, very useful quote, which says that if anything is free, you are the product.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a great quote, Gary.
Yeah, that's exactly. They only do. They do. Free stuff happens for two reasons. One, it's a teaser to get you in, so freemium model. So, for example, QuoteMonster. QuoteMonster will give you a free access to you do quotes and things, but then if you want to upgrade to get the research, you pay. QuoteMonster use the quote data, not the client information, but the quote data. They can see all the quotes you do. And so when they can go back to providers and go, hey, we saw that of the 4,000 members that do quotes, these many were done, and this was the average price of TBD trauma. So actually, his point's exactly right. QuoteMonster's now building what they call business intelligence because they can see what you're doing in their system. And as I say, while they protect, and they've got in their agreement, they definitely don't keep or look at any personal data. The quantitative data is used. So that's an example. The other free one is where they actually want to market to you or look at your data as and they can. So yeah, good point. Something to think about. Right. And just, I'll just get back a bit. Just also from a business point of view, if you're using a Hotmail address as your business email, just from a professionalism level, I cringe a little bit. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion. That's something to think about. If I do, maybe your clients do.
Yeah, I mean, for $5 a month, you can pick up Office 365 basic. So.
Yeah, well, and the Office 365, I think, is changing people's work. I mean, software for service, and we're going to come up in one of our subjects. What I mean by software for service is previously we've had to buy, you'd have to buy a piece of software, put it on your system, and then upgrade or buy a new license later on. Whereas now, software for service was started with Salesforce, I guess, but now as Microsoft have turned it into, as long as you're paying your $5 or $10 a month, it upgrades. You don't have to worry about upgrading it. It's always there, and we use it. But then we go, cool, it all stores in the cloud as well. And then once again, we've got that question, right? What are we storing in the cloud, and who has access to it? How is it protected? So passwords, as you saw, they came up pretty much everywhere there. I think they're the bane of a lot of people's lives these days. But I just wanted to quickly get a bit of a poll, a bit of an idea. Where do you keep work passwords.
Okay.
So for all your work systems, where do you keep them?
So same principle. I've launched a poll. We'll give you a few seconds to answer it. So where do you keep your passwords? It's an interesting one that continues to fascinate me. Actually, I mean, I use a very robust tool in here at NZFAA, or just generally,
Yep.
which is is encrypted at the client end. It's encrypted at the on the server, but it means I've got access to my passwords wherever I want them.
Yeah.
So and
What's the
they're
tool called? Dave?
LastPass.
Yeah. Great.
That's a great tool. Okay, I will give it another 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, we've got 71% voting this time. Maybe we can get 100% on our last poll. Okay, so here's the answer. Here's the results, Barry. So we've got 16% store their passwords on obviously very honest people, on a piece of paper.
No, well, it's happened. It's true. Yeah.
Again, this is a multi-choice, so you can add more than one option.
Yep.
42% in a book in the office, 29% on the spreadsheet, 39% the web browser remembers them for me. And interestingly, 21% use a separate password management tool, which that's actually relatively high by comparison to the people I speak to.
Yeah, I'm seeing it happen more and more. And it happens for two reasons. I think people have done it for two reasons. One, they've done it just for the sake of, and I know in here at IDS we have a spreadsheet which is password locked, which we thought was pretty good until one of the guys came in who's doing some work for us and he said, oh, if you get the password, he goes, yeah, I'll show you why this is not good. And he quickly got in the back door of it quite simply, and it turned into a whole lot of gobbledygook, but within that gobbledygook were the passwords all listed out. So yeah, I think he opened it with Notebook or something, all on offer. No, nothing, wasn't a big hack.
Yeah.
And he said anyone with any computer knowledge could break an Excel spreadsheet password. So yeah, we quickly moved from that.
Yes, I've done that on numerous occasions actually. In fact, I've had because my background, I think a number of you are probably aware, my background is technology. And it is very easy to break an Excel password.
Yes, so the 33 passwords I think I have to remember across both business and personal, whatever it is, which is just crazy. So I think a lot of people have moved to password manager software, because it saves you having to remember to update the piece of paper or the book or whatever it is. I do see, ironically, the little post-it notes and that around. And so, yeah, who has access to the passwords? It is important, and the more robust you can do it. If you're going to have it on a piece of paper or in a book in the office, then yeah, that's okay, but lock it away. Once again, make sure it's locked, because otherwise it's almost a waste of time hiding it. And it is so important. The same with the smartphone. A lot of people just have the swipe access or whatever, but if someone gets onto your phone and they can then easily get in because you've got your passwords loaded in already, that's easy. The Google remembering them one, or your website remembering them, once again, if your computer's not locked and someone can get onto your browser, then bang, they're away. They've got all your passwords because it's just saved there for them. Makes it really easy. So we're going to get into that in some more detail. We're going to get someone who's an expert in how those systems work to give you some ideas. Because the password management systems, A, not only are they more secure, but B, it takes away a whole lot of stress about managing them and updating them as well.
Yeah, well, I think I've got somewhere over 300 passwords across the net, and I wouldn't have a hope of trying to remember them all. So LastPass has just revolutionised the way I manage passwords.
Well, there you go. You might be our expert presenter next time. Right, now, the other key thing about personal data is, hey, do you get the authority to hold the client data? So one of the quick checks you need to do is to make sure that you do have a Privacy Act statement that the client gets that says, hey, I'm going to hold some of your information. This is usually done at engagement with advisors, because once you start doing fact finding or gathering data for a client, you're going to hold that, whether they actually become clients or take out products or invest with you. If you give advice, you're going to hold that data for 7 years, then make sure it's really clear. have you disclosed to them where and how it is stored? So do they know it is on the system, or that, other people, that you can share it with for your office work? So yeah, make sure it's really clear. A lot of the time I see it that says, hey, we keep this information at our offices. That's fine if you're only a hard copy, but if you then state we store it on our systems and they are kept online or in the cloud, as they say, you just need to let your clients know that that's what happens. And the reason that becomes important, because if later on there is a breach and something does go wrong, so we've got to prepare for the worst. So if there is a breach of whatever system you happen to be using, the client can't say they didn't know their information wasn't there. So it sort of gets you off the hook a bit in that instance. So that's the big risk. But let's firstly look at, why are we using technology in our businesses, and what are some of the things you should look to do in managing or reviewing the technology you use. When we look at this, we sort of break it down into 4 key areas. We use technology to communicate. We look to marketing of using websites or marketing emails, Facebook, social media, etc. Productivity, making the business go faster, making systems and processes easier. And then customer service. So that gets into that CRM space, but where we're going, okay, how can we help clients manage the client experience? What outcomes should you be looking for from IT systems when you're looking to use them? Firstly, and you wouldn't want to look at systems just from a compliance point of view, for sure, that's not the reason. The first one is, can we create efficiencies? Any technology should make you faster, better, stronger, in my opinion. To create those efficiencies, we obviously need to know what we're doing. So for example, if there's repetitive tasks that you have, so every month we're going to send out a reminder for a review to clients. Well, is someone going to sit there and write out 53 emails every month, one by one, or can we get the system to do that? So that's an example of replacing repetitive tasks. The other one is to reduce costs. So sending clients a letter on their anniversary versus sending them an email. Well, emails don't cost too much, but letters cost whatever they cost, a couple of bucks each once you take into account everything. So we're looking to reduce costs, and it should reduce risk of data security. So what we're trying to do there is, because we're using technology, can we make it easier to make the data secure? Now let's break that to each area of what we actually use. Firstly, communication. The telephone. While people don't probably consider that part of their technology package, actually it's a key part and probably one of the most used technologies we do have. There are a couple of different options around that for calls. One is obviously the standard landlines. But obviously voice over internet protocol, or VoIP, is becoming more popular in the fact that it means you can move offices, keep your numbers, and reduce cost as well. So then that becomes an interesting thing is, for example, if we're going to use call recorders for our telemarketing, how does that technology work? Are we recording calls? How do we keep track of calls so that we can prove we had them? So there's a whole lot of questions around there, around how does that work. Some systems get really smart in the fact that they can link up with your CRM systems as well, so you can record calls or have them pop up as recorded a call to happen at a particular time. So telephone technology is one that's still a prominent one to use. Then you've got your mobile phone. We've got calls and texts and emails and things happening off the mobile phone. So it's interesting. Some people say, I want to use the new iPhones, but then how does that link in with your email? And so now when you start to go, well, hang on, if I use Google, maybe I should use a Samsung phone. Or if I use iPhones, and I know, I'll give you the example with the iPhone. We've got the iCloud now. A friend of mine's just gone through a breakup, and the iPhone happens to store everything, so all the emails, texts and call records in the cloud. So if someone was having an affair, say, and they didn't realise all their texts were being kept in the cloud, someone else might be able to find them and give them to their lawyer and divorce you and go for all your money. So yeah, watch out for that one. But handy too, if you do text clients and you do want to keep a record of it, how can you link that to your CRM system or keep a record of it? Email, and there's two ways we use email, obviously one-to-one, well, emailing between one person, but then there's the multiple emails, or the email marketing, one-to-many. So there are specific tools that do that. And then, as we've already said, you've got lots of choices from your free emails, ones where you can have an email server in your system, in your own office, or you can have it offline with one of the many providers. So things around there, we start to get into, well, do we have a domain name, and how do we manage the domain name? How does that link through to our emails? Generally, we just get that set up independently of any other systems, but it is good to start to think about these days, well, how's that going to interact with my CRM system? Do I have to cut and paste every email into the CRM system, or can I get a CRM system where the emails automatically get loaded up? That can be a really interesting space. Video conferencing, people are more using Skype these days. In fact, one of the things we're going to look at with the virtual reality is systems where you can actually share your screen and have the advice presentations or documentation and the client all up on one screen at one time, and record the whole thing as well. From a compliance point of view, that's just gold, because if it's recorded and you can see everybody and you can see the documents that were gone through and confirmation that they're accepting advice, well, that takes a whole lot of pressure off documentation. So video conferencing is a real interesting space. And if you still have a fax, I'm not really sure why you would have one these days, but if you do, that's another piece of technology to keep up to date, because can it automatically save faxes into systems and things?
That's an interesting area. There's still a number of people that do use faxes, and I think some of the banks still recognise it as a communication technology.
Well, if they want, I've got a whole lot of cassettes downstairs too from a lot of music on it. I'll send them those. They can keep using those as well.
No, actually, in fact, in terms of faxes,
flock of seagulls haircut.
I think in terms of faxes,
I'm being really flippant.
I know, I see that. I think there are some obviously online tools you can now use to fax rather than necessarily having a physical device in your office now.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the fax be able, like I know a lot of businesses switch where they got rid of the fax machine, but if a fax did come through on their phone system, it would then turn it into a PDF or whatever through their system, which is good. Now, marketing technologies. Once again, the telemarketing. So we've got the telephone on there. We have had a few investigations into what telemarketers say and do where the calls aren't recorded, and that makes it really difficult because there can be rogue telemarketers from time to time who want to get their sales up. So yeah, recording of those becomes a simple way to ensure that calls can be checked. Your website, obviously a key marketing tool from the point of view it's probably the first people will look for if they Google you. PowerPoint presentations, emails, one-to-many, we've got online adverts, there's a whole range of different things, and then all your LinkedIn, Facebooks and Twitters. All of that from a client-facing point of view, we now look at it, that's the shop window. And that shop window needs to be kept really clean. So this is where the fair trading, are you making misleading statements or promises, we'll get you the best and cheapest insurance in the whole of New Zealand. We deal with all the providers, we'll get you the best investment returns, or we are independent, and all these sort of things. So yeah, it's a key one to look out for. And we recommend, any time you put something up that's going to be client or public facing, make sure you get it checked, just because it's so easy to slip up on simple stuff. And be aware, the FMA have a whole technology department that is scanning and viewing everything that happens online that has the words financial advice or financial planner. So we've seen a lot of businesses get the warning letters. Hey, please explain. You'll say on your website you do KiwiSaver, but we can't see you registered or have an authorised advisor. So then they start to ask those questions. Productivity. these are the good ones. Obviously, customer relationship management system, while a lot of them get used as filing systems and client address books, really they should be able to produce some efficiencies. And for example, the renewal example I gave, clients' annual renewal reviews coming up, the CRM system should be able to produce a report, or should be able to automate that so that tasks pop up or automatically send emails. Is that able to be happening? Online calendars are providing really good technology whereby people, PAs or lead generations or whatever, can actually interact with your calendar, and it's on your phone and it's on your computer, and you only have one calendar. I have had frustration last year with one of my team still using a paper-based diary, and would now and again forget to write things in. So after a very serious talk, we now finally got her online, and it makes everybody's life a whole lot easier. Accounting systems, so this comes into the idea of you've got to make sure you're up to date, whether it's Xero or MYOB. That's another system we're starting to use. Here at IDS, we've been able to link our accounting system up with our CRM system, Salesforce, which means that we can automatically link billing and activities straight away. So when a process finishes on Salesforce, there's an automatic link and kick into Xero to say, hey, there's a draft invoice, and that can then be sent out, and when that gets paid, it shows up in the CRM system as all being done. So that has saved a whole lot of manual time of double checking and cross-referencing what's happening with processes. One of the key areas we work with advice businesses is actually integrating their processes, such as their advice process, to automate the steps, where basically instead of having a checklist in the front of a hard copy file to make sure you've done everything, the CRM system, you have to tick off as you go along that the things have been done to show that the full process gets complete and that all the evidence is there as well. File storage and sharing, so we're going to talk a lot about that when we talk about data security. And then research systems, we've got external systems that we use, which mean that you can do one quote that covers all the companies you use. That, compared to doing one by one quotes and then putting it into a spreadsheet, that's a real productivity saver. And then customer service, obviously all those other bits and pieces that we do for when clients want to interact with us. We're starting to see more SMS systems being activated out of CRM systems, whereby reminders for appointments, nothing worse than driving an hour to a client and then going, oh, we forgot. Whereas if you can flick a text to them automatically off your system and it comes back and says, yep, we remember tomorrow, then that's saved you a whole lot of time and effort. Also, customers being able to access information or log in via websites or onto CRMs, we're starting to see more of that, which means they're interactively updating or making requests.
Barry, are you using any advisors having online help desk type services in your channel?
Not specifically. Like, there's always the offer of answering questions in that we're seeing. We do see it for those businesses that are mainly web-based. So we do have practices that operate where they don't actually meet the client. It's usually around a sale of a product where the client interacts only electronically. So yeah, we do see it in that case.
Right. Okay.
But from traditional advisor processes, the phone is still key.
I think some of there is potential if for some of the larger advisory practices where they've got a number of advisors around the country, having that and potentially thousands of clients, potentially having some sort of help desk service could be an opportunity. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and we do see some of the ask us a question on some of the social media type ones where they'll answer by text and things as well. The thing to think about, it's actually interesting because this year we seem to have had inundated with investigations and bits and pieces. And the bit we fall down is where there's phone calls without a record of what happened on the phone call. So the advisor will kind of, we discussed this on the phone. And then I go, cool. Well, we haven't got any evidence of what was discussed or agreed, and it falls into a hole, which is why we always say, don't just do a file note, actually do an email back to them, hey, it was great to talk to you, this was the issue, and here's what was agreed, or here's what's said, Same with product providers. If you have a phone call with a product provider and there's a decision or discussion, email them afterwards, store the email, get some evidence that that conversation happened, because it is a gap we see quite often.
Yeah, that's where some of those VoIP technologies come into play, because I know one of the guys that lives next door, he runs an online telephone solution, and he has the ability for all phone calls to be recorded.
And look, if you look to that 5 years ago, everyone would go, my God, all that data, what am I going to do with it? These days, the amount of data and online storage means that actually it's possible to do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Hardware. The other thing is, a lot of the stuff we look at, changing the phone or phone system or computers and bits and pieces, we tend to handle it, I think, sometimes when it goes wrong and we upgrade. But do we ever have a holistic view of how does that all fit together in the best possible way? And it tends to build up over time. So that's a lot of the... So I stopped and thought about it, and I just reviewed a few clients that I've looked at recently and looked at how many different of these either tech systems or pieces of hardware. And yeah, it was on average about 17, which is quite a lot when you stop and think about it. I hadn't really stopped and thought about it until I was putting this presentation together. So that means that, there's a lot of money tied up in that, and there's also, a lot of potential for things to go wrong. Key risks. We've already covered the big one, data security, but business continuity is another one. We saw during the Christchurch earthquakes, advisors that were hard copy based and desktop based in the city, or had their local storage, couldn't get back to their office ever again in some cases. They had to start from scratch. Whereas those that had potentially something like Xplan, where everything was stored on there, they could go home, log on, keep going. That was a massive learning, I think, for a lot of people. The other one's expensive mistakes. We've seen some people go down the wrong path or end up in a system that isn't right for them. An example, recently, over the last 6 years, I've got one client who's been through 4 different CRM systems to try and get it right for their business. And the thing was, they took solutions up front that were either free or offered to them by a provider, or provided, there was some discount or some things like that. So they thought it was a good economic solution, but it didn't actually do what they wanted to do. And switching from systems to systems, especially CRM systems, can be expensive. And the other one is brand damage. We have seen instances where communication from emails or from different parts of businesses, where it goes wrong, can cause brand damage. And social media is going to be a big one we talk about on that. What you say on social media these days, especially under a company brand, can be really divisive, so an area to watch. So how do you manage IT? And as I said, usually we don't worry about it until it's not working or until something goes wrong. So we're reactive to that. My last question of the day, how many of you actually have the processes in your business mapped out so you know what has to happen with each step? In a document, preferably, or in a diagram? So the inputs and outputs for each step, or do you have a process manual that someone can refer to for how your business operates? So, just a quick question to wrap up the session.
Okay, so we've got a number of options here. You can either have, yes, all my processes are documented, most of my processes are mapped out. I have documented some of my processes, none of my processes are documented, or processes, what are they? So hopefully we get none in the last response.
Brilliant.
So give it another 15 seconds. So let's see if we can get more than 70% responding.
If we do, I promise to shorten the presentation.
On the basis that we get 100% response. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We got 70%. That's okay. Okay, results. 24% have all their processes documented. 27% have most. Some are 32, and none are 14. So that's the responses. And 3% said, "What are they?" Thank you.
And look, it's actually a really good question, because if you're an individual advisor, potentially on your own, and you know what you have to do and you're responsible for it, it just gets done. So the chances of you sitting down and mapping out, it's generally when we get a bit bigger or we bring staff in. And usually if we bring staff in, for example, who start helping you with your practice and they leave, then we suddenly realise actually all that knowledge of how the processes walked out with them, and I don't know how they did it, and we have to start again. So once again, it's not until we go wrong that we actually stop and do this. But there are some real... Sorry.
So I think there are, but when you're in an individual advisory practice, there are, as you say, there's probably not a requirement to document your process, but you do inherently have processes that you follow.
Yes.
On a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis or whatever it is. But there are processes.
Unconsciously competent.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is. Everything's a process. So everything from lead generation, I get a lead, okay, I ring them, and then I go and see them, and then I do a fact, and then I do everything's a step-by-step process. It all has an input and all has an output generally. This is, I guess, what one of the handy tips. Even if you are up and running, map out your process. The idea of stepping down, and I've done this myself last year with our team, where we're doing advice process reviews. We actually sat down as a team and we put out each step that we do. We all knew what it was, because we wanted to build it into our system, so our system automated it as much as possible. So previously, an account manager for us who was going to do a review had to make the appointment, go and see them, prepare the template, make sure they had the right one, complete the review, follow up for information, then put together a report, then make the recommendation, prepare the follow-up for the certificate, and then put all that information into Salesforce to tell us it was done. Now, out of all of those steps, our account manager only has to do 4 of the 14 steps. Everything else is done by either the operational people or the system itself. So they are now in a free world whereby they just have to do their pieces, and the system takes care of it. So for them, and it could be the same for an advice business, which bits does the advisor actually have to be involved with versus which bits can the team, operations, PA, or the system do. So once you've done that, where can you improve, both for the clients and for the business, and where are the risks of things going wrong? One of the best ways, and I've got a little photo there of the board, is to actually just get post-it notes and step out, put them on a board and map it all out. And it's actually quite a fun process. Most advice businesses, I look at it, they will have 4 main processes: lead generation, how does the advice work, how does product implementation work, and then what's the client service plan, the reviews, notifications, newsletters. Map each of those out. So we then identify each task, who does it, who does what, what's required to complete the task, the input, and then what should come out of it. If everybody did that before they looked at a CRM system or before they looked at actually any system, it then makes it really easy when you're going to look at systems or reviewing your systems, as may be the case now, to go, is the system the best at helping us do this? Because this is what, when you buy a CRM system or you buy any system, sometimes businesses buy it expecting that the system will do this for them, whereas ironically you've actually got to program into the system what you want it to do. So yeah, that would be a very useful process for any business that feels that.
Chris White's made an interesting point, and that is that even if you start with a blank page today, it's something that you should probably review and update on a probably annual basis.
Absolutely, yeah. Because things change. We've just noticed we have in our business, we have a read receipt tracking system and a separate system that we use, which has been really good and really useful. But then all of a sudden, we also have another piece of software that automatically links our emails into Salesforce for us. That's just released for free, an update that does the same tracking system. So now we get to drop a technology that we pay for because we've now got it in the new it's a new free included in the current technology. So we we stopped and said, hey, we knew this was here. Let's review it. Does it work? Was it secure? Are we happy with it? Yes, we are. Is there any reason to keep that other technology? No. Right, dump it. And that was a decision we were able to make because we stopped and reviewed it. Which technologies are required? The ones to look for are the ones that can do as many steps, or the ones that are most useful at helping you. So this comes down to, well, does my email system interact with my CRM system? And if not, is there one that will? And which ones can I use that work well on my smartphone? And which ones can we use that other people can see? So looking at them from what they can do and how they link up together, whereas with probably a lot of businesses I see have sort of just built up over time and they make the decisions independent of each other. Oh, that's my website guy because he's a client, and that's my email because I've always been there, and then this is my other. So all of a sudden we've got these systems stacked, don't quite fit together. We've got manual workarounds to make it work, and now's the time for the review. So someone's just read my presentation. We recommend reviewing the technology once a year and follow a process for doing that. So the IT checklist could be a starting point. Think about your long-term needs as well as costs. So while something might look expensive today, if it's able to create efficiencies and save time, then maybe it won't. So if a system costs $100 a month per user, can you save that person's hourly rate worth $100 each month by them using it? And get advice from the experts. Get people in who know what the systems are and what they do. Generally getting advice just from the guy at Harvey Norman selling you your laptop, probably not the best tip. So here's a bit of a review checklist we've put together, which will hopefully integrate. I haven't seen David's final version, but hopefully it sort of covers some of the same things. And as you'll see as we go through the other presentations throughout the year, we'll be covering a lot of these items for each individual section. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of a headline and help in that area. Things to look for. What are your future needs? As I said already, cheap isn't always cheap. Don't skim. Watch out for things where software is unsupported. So if you're running off old systems that are no longer supported by the provider, then that's probably a dangerous place to be. And in this case, I suggest this is probably the one area of your life where you don't want to be a leader. First adopters times learn the hard way that it's not always the best way to go. So make sure that there is proven technology that other people are using before you jump into it as well.
That last point is very, very important. So many people get called out by saying, I want the latest and the greatest because it's got all these snazzy bells and whistles, but actually there's bits broken that don't get fixed until, version 1.111. So
my Windows 10 is on my new fancy Surface Pro, and I've upgraded to Windows 10, and it's now got a bug in it that means I can't see, the usual Windows thing with the tiles page, which makes it a bit easier to navigate sometimes.
Yeah.
If I press that, it just shuts down now, so I now can't get that. But I can still use it, but there you go. I probably shouldn't have upgraded earlier. I should have waited.
That'll teach you to be an early adopter.
That's me being the early adopter, yeah. So guys, look, I hope that's given you a taste of what the series is going to be like. We haven't gone into a whole lot of detail, but hopefully we've given you enough to think about. Hang on, maybe it's time that I stop and let's review. Let's write down, go through the checklist. What have we got? What do we like? What don't we like? What's it costing us? What options do we have? I think even if you just do that one review, whether or not you take action from it today or when you do it, that's another question. But just getting that itemized checklist of everything that you've got. How old are they? When do dates run out? Are they supported? Do we have maintenance contracts? Are they insured? I mean, check with your insurers as well. Do we have insurance if our CRM system drops down and we can't work? Business continuity, etc. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things that come out of that. But thanks very much for your time. That's all from me, unless there's any questions.
Barry, that's a great presentation and a really, really good introduction to some potentially some fairly meaty topics over the next few months.
Mm.
There was one. There was one question that we've got about a couple of minutes if people
Yeah,
have any further
absolutely.
questions. But there was one point that Gary Kavanagh made, and I think it's a very valid point, and that was I know we were fairly disparaging about faxes and the use of faxes. The, Gary says that aren't faxes unhackable? I don't. I'm not entirely sure that they're entirely unhackable, but I understand that they are somewhat more secure than some of the technologies that people employ for other communication.
Yeah, look,
Um,
my views on faxes are definitely not the views of NZFAA. They're only the views of Barry Reid. Yeah, look, I totally agree. I was, yeah, it's, I just, as far as security is concerned, you're absolutely right, because it's a phone line. So unless the phone line is hacked, it's very unlikely that your fax will be hacked. So yeah, you're absolutely right from a security point of view.
yeah, and I think what
From a
was
point of view of
sorry.
evidence, though, like so for example, if it's faxed and having evidence of it being received and things like that, keeping the bit that says yep, the fax was okay to that number, and then keeping the fax itself, so therefore picking it up, putting it in a hard file and or scanning it, so that it probably is more the inefficiency of the fax compared to other technologies available today. Yeah, but from a security point of view, definitely no issue.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. And what we're seeing actually from a technology point of view, and some of the research I've been doing recently, there's an increasing number of professional services firms now running entirely secure email communication solutions. So
Yeah.
all the communication is done through you know, encrypted communication rather than having the normal communication technology that
Well,
people
yeah,
use.
you're looking. I think Apple were looking at going encrypted on their phones, for example, to match what RIM did with their Blackberries and things like that. You know,
Mm,
they become the choice of drug dealers and financial advisors because they're secure. So it's good.
absolutely, which is making the US authorities relatively grumpy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's the whole part of it is and this is going to be this is a challenge for every business at every level. Um, I just guess that because of the sensitivity of some of the work we do as financial advisors, I think clients would be particularly unhappy compared to, the Mitre 10 bloody Freedom card or whatever it is, where it's got their name, address, phone numbers. Well, if that was leaked, yeah, okay, that's a breach. But whereas if their health and their financial data information was leaked, that would be a bigger to
to,
do.
absolutely, to potentially more serious damage. Absolutely. Okay, it's 12:13 by my clock. Barry, thank you very much for a very, very insightful presentation. Hopefully, you and the audience have enjoyed today's session and got something out of it. As I mentioned, there will be a follow-up survey. I think it will appear when I close the meeting on your screen. If you miss it, you'll also get an email about an hour later, I think, with with a link to the survey. So really appreciate your feedback. And again, if you want to take advantage of the structured CPD, you'll need to complete that, including the last two questions on that, or the last two comments on that. Have a very good. Oh, just before I go, Chris White has said in relation to the NZFA of the options paper submission due by the 26th of February, he's asked if we can have at least something to help people in their submissions. So what I will look to do, I'm finalising our draft by the end of next week, which I'm then submitting to the board. So I will look to try and get something to the members. I'll make it available in the members area of our website for comment and for downloading if they want it. But also what I'll look to do is to put some guides on areas where we probably should have some input, and I'll get that out to most of the audience by the end of next week. Hopefully that will work, Chris.
Yeah, I had just for my 2 cents worth, David, I've met separately with MB as part of the compliance managers that support the industry. So we've had a couple of meetings with them, and that's been really interesting. They are keen on change, and they're looking for simplification. So that the areas that they're looking for feedback on, is how at the moment we've got this alphabet soup in the industry of financial advice, which is confusing, A, for the industry and B, for consumers. So they are very keen of trying to get it simple so that there is someone is a financial advisor, and it doesn't matter what product. So category 1, category 2 doesn't really matter. I am a financial advisor, and the way they're looking at that, we're even looking at the definition of that. At the moment, financial advice is defined as giving an opinion and or recommendation on buying, holding or selling a financial product. Whereas to be defined as a financial advisor, I know a couple of the industry associations are also looking at saying, well, hang on, who's assessing the suitability of a financial product for somebody? Which I think is a better definition. So is it the client who's assessed their own suitability and decided they wanted to buy it, so it becomes more of a transaction, versus actually there's been someone giving some advice and assessing suitability of a product, be it a full financial plan, or be it, hey, let's just look at the risk tolerance for your KiwiSaver. And therefore we would either have financial advisors on a register or a licensed system as they are now, but also entities, because at the moment we're in a situation where someone works for an entity, the entity tells them what advice they can and can't give and what products, but at the moment, theoretically, the individual's liable unless they're a QFE member. So there's some opportunity around entity licensing for businesses such as managing agencies and things as well. So yeah, those are the key areas I see.
It is a fascinating area. I'm conscious of time, but we had a meeting with a cross-industry association meeting late January, and then we followed that up with a meeting with MB, and there are some interesting challenges ahead. So watch this space. But as I say, what I'll do is I'll put something out next week. Barry, thanks once again.
Cool.
To the audience, have a very nice long weekend. Hopefully the sun will shine at some stage, and we'll look forward to seeing you online next time. Thanks, guys.